Welcome to our Introduction to Data Visualization workshop. My name is Mihir Thakkar and I am the founder and instructor at Code. We are an online platform which is trying to change how students learn programming online. We organize live and interactive free workshops for students where they come in, they learn with our industry experts and try to gain as much as information and talk to them as much as they can. The whole point in organizing live sessions like these is to make sure that you can get your questions answered in the session itself rather than waiting for next few weeks or asking on some kind of forum. We want to make sure that everyone over here goes away with a sense of be able to create something on their own. So it is not only programming that we learn, but the ultimate aim of any workshop or any course at Code is to make sure that you are walking away with a skill which will allow you to create something which you can show it in your job interview or to your friends along those lines. Okay. So make sure that you ask me questions as we go along, because it is important that we keep the session interactive and answer any question, even the slightest question which you might have, so that it allows you to not have any kind of gap in the understanding of the subject. Having said that, let's see what we are going to learn today. So the first thing that we are going to see in today's workshop is how does even data visualization help, and what are the scenarios that it is most likely that you would want to use a data visualization rather than having something else. Then we'll understand some basic JavaScript. We won't go too much into the detail over there because you guys have told me that you do have some basic experience with JavaScript, or you have written a little bit of JavaScript before. And then we'll use HighCharts, which is a third-party JavaScript library, to build our custom data visualizations, and we'll try to make it as interactive as we can in the limited time that we have. So the first scenario where I think that we most likely need some kind of data visualization is to make decisions. It could be at corporate level, or it could be something about your personal life as well. It doesn't have to be just monetary or at an enterprise level. Even in your personal day-to-day life, you might collect data about yourself and then you might want to visualize it. So the first scenario where I think that you most likely are going to need some kind of data visualization to be able to get insights into your data. An example over there, I have a website or a service like an Amazon. So what happens with Amazon is they have a lot of products listed on their site, and then users come in and pay them essentially to buy the products that they want. And in the process, they're not only just paying the money, but they are also giving a lot of data about themselves. Data such as which city they are from, which item did they buy, when did they buy it, or what their gender is, what their credit card information is, and a whole lot of other information, right? So Amazon essentially creates a social profile around this user, and what it wants to do is make sure that the next time when the user comes in, they want to tailor the experience that the user sees. So they want to make sure that they analyze this data properly. And let's say tomorrow Amazon wants to increase the sales of its products. So what it's going to do? What is its biggest asset? Well, in today's world, the biggest asset that any enterprise has is its data, right? The data that it collects from its users. So for Amazon as well, the biggest asset over there is the data that they have. And they can tap into that data and see what's the trend going on. So in this case, they might have a dashboard like this. This is not necessarily an Amazon dashboard, but I'm just trying to point out to say an executive at Amazon could have this visualization in front of him and see from that, you know what, I think that the sales on the East Coast are doing good, but somewhere along the West Coast, we are not that great. So let's do some targeted ads on YouTube or through other platforms, and let's get the sales going on the West Coast. And remember, we are not talking about data in terms of few megabytes. We are talking the data in the scale of several terabytes over there, right? It's impossible to just look at the data in a table or something like that and see, oh, it's more on the East Coast or it's more on the West Coast. It's impossible. You're talking about terabytes of data over there. And to do that, you need some kind of visualization tool, or you need some machine learning or artificial intelligence to help you make your decisions. So that's one scenario where you want to gain insights into the data that you already have. And that's why you would need data visualization over there to inform your exec level or your C-level executives to make sure that they understand what's going on right now with my company or my business or my health, or it could be anything. And once they get more insights into the data, it becomes easier for them to get new paying customers as well. They can target it, and they can target the customers and the segments that they are falling short on, and then they can get more paying customers from there. So here's the second scenario. When you want to tell a story to someone, data visualization is pretty handy as well. So let's say now I don't want to get insights into the data, but I want to tell that to someone else. I want to teach them, I want to educate them what's going on in the world, or I want to tell them what's going on with my company. Well, in those cases, data visualization is a great way to tell your story. So over here, this example could be something like a sports teacher who is trying to get funds for his soccer field. And let's say if he's pitching a proposal or something like that, he could have this nice data visualization chart over there and say, you know what, the grade 3 learners love playing soccer. So immediately they get a visual cue over there saying, you know what, yeah, I think we should invest in the soccer field of the school. So data visualization is a great way to tell something that you want to share with others publicly, or to make a complicated subject more simple. So if you want to convey a topic to general public, it's a great way to communicate information about your data. So those are the two high-level scenarios that I could think of. And let me know if you guys think that there is another one which I'm missing out on. Please tell me that, no, you know what, this is something different and we don't have that covered in the first two scenarios. But those are the two broad scenarios that I could think of in terms of in what cases you might really want to have data visualization tools at your hand to be able to do or solve that problem. So I have a few quick examples over here. I'm not sure how many of them I can go over it, but let's just go ahead and click on one or two of them and we'll see. I just want to give you a sense of what all is possible. So these are some examples of good data visualizations that I could come across. So let me go ahead and click on these guys. So the first one is, why do buses bunch? That's the name of the data visualization over there. What's happening over here? It's kind of visualization plus simulation. Both of them are going on at the same time. You see a bunch of buses which are going on, couple of buses which are going to different stops. And at the bus stop, they have a nice visualization over there, which is showing us what is an average wait time for a person who is standing over there. So right now it's more of a evenly distributed distribution over there. And what you want to make sure is that time doesn't increase too much. And what they're saying is, what happens if you pause or hold a bus for even a few seconds? So let's see what happens. So I'm going to click on this bus one over here, which is going to cause it to pause on the screen for a few seconds. And then let's see what happens. Right now, you see that the average wait time is pretty much, it's increasing, but it's almost uniform over there. So let me see. I have paused this bus now, and then I'm going to release it. So let's see what's going to happen. Slowly, these buses are going to get together, and the time which was uniform, now it's going to get escalated. As you see, now the time over here on this bus stop is just going to go haywire because these two buses are going to run back to back with each other. So this is a scientific fact or a physical phenomena that they're trying to explain on why do often buses come one after the other, even though they're running in a loop. So sometimes we say that, oh, I don't know why do these guys do it, but it's more of a physics or a simulation problem, a real world problem than anything else. So this is one of the interactive visualizations that I thought it was good to have. It's a simulation come visualization, which is trying to explain a concept over there. So that's one. Let's see what's next. We also have Google Flight Simulation Visualization. So you could do things like plot the flight path of all the flights which are going around. So right now, this is on the Thanksgiving of 2015 day. They are showing all the flights from US international and domestic airports. So as you see over here, the traffic is now slowly going to go down towards the end of the day, right? So over here it's 5 a.m. and it's slowly going off. And now again, 2 a.m. it's starting to catch up. 5 a.m. now it's going to get really busy. And it's showing you where all the major international airports are. So looking at this, I can say that there is one major international airport over here. One, I think this is New York. the Newark Airport, and this is Washington, Seattle, right? So looking at that, I could just tell which major cities and major airports are over there. So this was one of the interesting data visualization that I thought I should share with you guys. And let's see. So I have the others on the slide as well, but this is the last example that we'll see. So over here, they have a couple of artists over there and their daily routines, which is plotted out over here. Looking at this, if you look at it, you could also click on these things over here and you could see, you could filter out what time of the day or know what thing they are doing. They have the names of all the artists. And on the right hand side, they have the time of the day, and the color signifies what they are doing. They are eating food, they are exercising, or they are doing some other stuff. When do they do their actual creative work? So if I click on the creative work over here, you would see that now this guy does his creative work pretty much at the night, like from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m. He's doing his creative work, and then he's sleeping at 8 through 10. I don't know what's going on with this guy, but something is really wrong with his schedule, or maybe he likes to work that way. You get the point. Looking at these charts, you could easily find out what's going on, and you don't have to look and wait through the entire table or an Excel sheet to try to figure out what's going on with the data. You could easily filter, sort, and do those kind of stuff. So let's get back, and I'll share this presentation with you so you could look at some other examples as well. So what are some data visualization tools which are available to us, or what is the best tool that we could use to convey the information that we have or the story that we are trying to share with someone else? So the first thing that we have are the traditional business tools such as Excel or PowerPoint. The good thing about these are they are very simple, and it doesn't take time to create those charts. You put your data into Excel, you just select it and define the rows and the columns which you want to create the data based off, and it pretty much works, right? And you can share your Excel sheet with others. They see the same charts. Or nowadays you could also use Excel online and share things just via an Office 365 link. So those all are good things, but there are some limitations to these tools, right? They're good for quick insights and creation, but they can handle very low amount of data. And when I say low volume of data, I'm talking in terms of several megabytes or maximum few hundred megabytes. I don't know if you guys have tried opening up an Excel sheet which is greater than several megabytes, or which is more than 50 megabytes or so, and it gets really laggy. It gets stuck up. So it's not a great way to handle huge volume of data. And in today's world, we're talking data in terms of several hundred gigabytes or several hundred terabytes in some instances. So these are not that good for handling high volume of data. They are okay for non-technical folks who are trying to get some quick data analytics or trying to get some quick insights. But if you want to do some serious stuff, this is not going to work. I also added this infographic as a tool over there because I think it's an important way to tell your story, right? I look at data visualization in a very broad terms. So even if you are creating a Photoshop image with infographic on it, I think of it as a tool which is allowing you or letting you tell your story. These infographics are great to convey a story or to educate your audience. They look very appealing, but in many cases, you want to talk to non-technical or general public. So these are great ways. If you create a HighChart visualization for them, or you create a dashboard for them, it's going to be very difficult for them to look inside there and have that analytical mindset to be able to analyze that data on a dashboard. It's going to be very difficult for you to do that. So in those cases, your best tool over there is going to be infographics. And again, it's going to be difficult for you to show a large data set. There are only 3 or 4 key parameters that you need to identify which you want to convey, and then you want to put them in the infographic and be able to show them. You won't be able to show them 100 different parameters or 100 different features over there, and they are generally static. There are some cases where you could create dynamic infographics using JavaScript as well, but in most cases they are static and they don't change dynamically with the data which is changing behind them. And then we have our custom JavaScript or native visualizations. So you could have a data visualization library for Android, which is going to work specifically for Android or iOS platform, or you could have a custom JavaScript library which you use or you create yourself to do the data visualizations on your web browser. So those all fall into custom JavaScript or native visualizations. And over here I have an example from d3.js. So I'm not sure if you guys heard of it, but it's a pretty neat tool to create data visualizations. It's, I would say, a little bit more complicated, not advanced, but it's more complicated, and that's why I didn't start off our course using D3. But I wanted to make sure that HighCharts over here is the second example, which also allows you to plot pretty complex visualizations, but I think it's significantly more simpler to learn or easier to learn than d3.js. So with custom data visualization, you can handle large volumes of data, right? And you could make your page responsive. They're going to fit correctly, responsively on mobile devices and apps as well. So that's a good thing. And you can build custom chart types as well. So if you have a request from the user to create a sunburst chart or something which is not a tree map, which is not readily available on your Excel or your PowerPoint, it becomes easier to create those custom types, custom vector charts on these custom JavaScript libraries. But as like all other good things, it takes time, it takes money, and you also need some developers to build it, right? So it's going to be very difficult for a non-technical person who has not written a single line of code to be able to go into and create a HighCharts. They could create HighCharts maybe online, but it's going to be difficult to customize that going forward. And then we have a hybrid of both of these two, the traditional BI tools combined with the JavaScript visualization. What you could have is tools like Microsoft Power BI or Tableau, which are good at handling large data sets, but can also be handled by non-developers, right? Can be built by non-developers. So someone like a sales executive can go in and build a sales dashboard for himself. They could also support custom APIs. So using third-party integration, you could have that data stored in your SQL server or your SharePoint site, and then grab the data from there and plot that on interactive visualization tools such as Power BI or Tableau. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to ask you, if you guys have any question, please make sure you ask me. Otherwise, I'm going to share a poll with you to make sure that everyone is understanding that. Okay, let me go ahead and launch the poll. So my question over there is, which is the most suitable data visualization tool to select for analyzing revenues of a mid-sized company in the last quarter? So will you use a custom JavaScript visualization or a modern BI tool such as Power BI or Tableau, or you will use infographic, or you will use a PowerPoint slide? So remember, these revenue charts, it's mostly going to be a non-technical person who's going to do this, right? It might be someone from a C-suite from revenues, someone who is marketing lead, or someone who is their business development lead. So it's going to, most likely it's going to be a non-technical person who is doing this. So make sure you answer along those lines. And they want to analyze the data, right? They just don't want to convey the story, or they don't want to just tell this to someone outside of the company. It's for their own purpose. They want to look at the data and find out what's going on with that data. So it's more of data analytics than telling a story to outside world. Keep that in mind as well. Most of you have voted, but I'm still going to wait for a few more votes. Let me end the poll and share the results. A lot of you said that you will use infographics over there, but I don't think that's the right choice. In my opinion, the right choice, and again, guys, there is no right or wrong answer to this. It's more of a good or a bad idea on what this could be. So in my opinion, I would have used a modern BI tool such as Power BI or Tableau over there. Given that the C-suite executive, they are not programmers, so you want to make sure that they are able to use a tool which someone like a marketing lead or someone like a business development lead can handle. And the other thing is, you want to analyze the data, right? With infographics, you can't analyze the data. You could tell a story to outside world, and you can educate someone. But if you want to analyze your data by yourself, you are not going to go ahead and create an infographic. To create that infographic, first you need the insights into the data. And let's say if I'm a marketing lead of a company who's trying to analyze revenues, it's important for me to be able to analyze that data first, and then I could create an infographic and put it on my PowerPoint slide or something like that, right? So to analyze the revenue of a mid-sized company, I think the most appropriate choice would have been modern BI tools such as Power BI or Tableau. If you guys don't agree with me, or no, if you still have any questions, because a lot of you got it wrong, again, let me not say wrong, but no, you guys had a different opinion over there, and maybe I wasn't able to convey that information properly to you. So please go ahead and ask me if something is not clear right now. Guys, the whole point on having these sessions online is to make sure that we keep the sessions interactive and you ask as many questions as you have, so that it helps you and you don't go walk off with some doubts or some uncertainties in your mind. So please make most out of these online sessions. So Sai Gopal is asking, what do we do Java visualization is used? So do you mean what do we do with these custom charts? So let me go over here. So over here. Okay, so for custom JavaScript visualizations, let's say if you want to build something which a tool like Power BI or Tableau is gonna fall short, as long as you are doing some basic charts, it's gonna work. But when you start doing some more complicated stuff, or no, you want to have it on your mobile device, right? That's where these guys gonna fail. It's gonna be very difficult for you to create something which is, say, if you want to create the something like we saw about the airline flight path, right? You want to take that data, but now also you want those GIF and animations of the planes going off from one side to another. You could do that in Power BI, but it's going to be very difficult for you to do that. It will be much easier for you to do that directly in JavaScript. Take those GIF files, put it over there. So as long as you are doing some basic stuff with business, or no, you're doing something along those lines, you're creating dashboards, you are good with Power BI or Tableau. But as soon as you get into things which are more custom, so if you want to have a button over there and you click on it and then something happens, and along those lines, it's going to be difficult to do those on Power BI. And over here, let's say if this is a HighCharts with like the few lines of code, you could have the date range, the filters, the export of the data, everything set up. But the same thing, if I have to do it on Power BI, it will take me a whole lot of time to able to get these buttons over there to have like 1 month, 3 month, 6 month charts. It's going to be very difficult for me to do that over there. As long as you're doing basic stuff with large amount of data, this is good. But if you want to do more complex stuff, or you want to do more custom stuff, you want to go with JavaScript custom data visualizations. Let me know if that makes sense, or no, if that was not clear. All right, let's see, what do we know about JavaScript? And I know that some of you I see from our yesterday's introduction to JavaScript course as well. So the next few minutes, at least next 15 to 20 minutes might be a repetition for you, but might be a good revision for you as well. Let's see, what is JavaScript, or no, why is it so important, or why do we like it so much? Well, JavaScript is object oriented. It's dynamic. It's dynamic because a lot of aspects of how you create variables, how they are stored, how functions are passed between the objects, everything is at runtime and it's dynamic in nature. And all the syntax, all the instructions are interpreted at runtime. So there is no compilation as such, and it is event-driven programming. So your JavaScript elements are not going to stay there and wait or poll for events, but they are going to create those listeners around the events and then listen to it and act accordingly. I always always like to give this example of why event-driven programming is unique, or why is it so useful. Let's say if someone comes and gives you 3 tasks, tasks 1, task 2, and task 3, and you have to complete them by tomorrow. And let's say for task 1, you need someone else's help. So you need your friend's help to do task 1. So you come, you give that task to your friend, and he tells you, you know what, I'm going to take 5 hours to do this. And so you are like, okay, no worries, take this task, do it in 5 hours and then come back. So are you going to wait for those 4 hours until your friend comes back to then go to task 2 or task 3? No, right? You're going to start working on task 2 and task 3 because they are not related to each other. So in those cases, your work is going to speed up a lot. So this is more of the concept behind asynchronous programming and being able to do things as and when they occur rather than waiting for them. in JavaScript as well, everything is not necessarily sequential. So the two lines that you have on your code, they not necessarily might execute one after the other. So the next line might be driven from an event on the screen. And the reason, as I told you, is that you don't want the program to wait until something else is finished. So my question is, how is event-driven programming so useful? Why? What does it do? And I accidentally gave you the answer, but I want to hear from you guys on why do you think that, why is it so important to have an event-driven programming language in our web browsers? So Sai is saying working makes easy with tasks and no need to wait for the first event to occur. We're talking about the speed over here, right? The speed of execution is everything. You don't want to be on a website which takes more than few minutes to load, right? Speed of execution is everything. You're gonna most likely drop off that website if it's gonna take more than few minutes to load. And that's why it's so important that when you're executing JavaScript, it's asynchronous and it is event driven. So keep that in mind. So let's get into the hands-on part of the workshop. We have had enough of theory today, I guess, but let's start writing some code and then we'll be able, and if you have any questions on the first part, you can always ask me later, okay? So let's go and start writing some code. What I'm gonna do is go to my folder over here, choose any folder that you want to work in, and I'm gonna go over here and now I have a folder called data visualization, which I have created, and I'm gonna start creating a simple HTML file over here. So what I'm going to do is go to Sublime. So I had asked you guys to download the Sublime text editor. You could also use any other text editor of your choice. As long as you're comfortable with it, don't worry about it. I'm going to use Sublime Text over here as my text editor. Let's close all of the files that we have. I'm going to say open a file and I want to save it into file, new file. I want to save as, and I'm going to save it to data visualization. And I'm going to say we are going to do HighCharts today. So let's save this as chart.html. We'll write the JS inline. So we'll save it as chart.html. I'm going to start saying HTML. And as soon as I say HT, it gives me an autocomplete prompt. So I'm going to press enter over there and it created some boilerplate HTML template for me. And I'm going to just create a sample title. So I'm going to say Code Heroku data viz and then save it. And let me know once you guys have opened a simple HTML file. In my case, I created a file called chart.html. Create it in any folder that you want. And then just create a simple boilerplate HTML code over there for me. And you could do that as I did, right? So what I did was I started writing HTML. And as soon as I had that, I pressed enter and it created that boilerplate HTML code for me. I'm going to be over here and let me know in the chat box once everyone has this basic template or no boilerplate HTML open. Let me know in the chat once you are here. So the next thing that we are going to do is let's just do a simple hello world over there. I'm going to go over here and let's start creating a simple JavaScript code for us. So we are going to say script over here. We're going to write inline JavaScript over here. And let's just say console.log hello world. Let's just see everything is working fine. We'll save it. Then let's go over here. I'm going to go to my folder over here and then just open this with Google Chrome. As you see, we didn't print anything to the HTML page itself, but we printed to the console, right? And that's what we use to generally debug our stuff. If you want to try out something, if you want to print an array or something like that onto the screen, not to the screen, but to the console, or you want to troubleshoot something, here's where you will go to see that. You'll see, go to right click, inspect and console, and we have our hello world over here. So everything is working fine for us. And let me know once you have tried a hello world and everything is working fine. So in JavaScript, you don't have to use semicolon after every line, as some of you might already know. If you need to use multiple statements on the same line, then you need to use semicolon after that, but otherwise it's fine. If you guys have tried that out, let me know. You just want to make sure that our template is set up correctly, all the script tag is proper and everything is working. So let me know once you tried out hello world, then we can go ahead and do other stuff. So as I said, we use console.log to put things onto our console. This is not for the end user, right? This is for us. This is for us to try out something. If you want to debug something, this is for us.
modify some elements on our page itself. So we want to put something on our page for the users over here, right? We want to essentially manipulate the HTML DOM that we have. And to do that, we could directly do it using JavaScript as well. No, without in plain JavaScript. But what I want to do is make sure that everyone over here also understand how most companies will have their front end stack set up. So most likely they are gonna also use something like jQuery to manipulate their HTML elements. So let's see what jQuery is. I have a slide over here for you, and let me just show that to you. So what is jQuery? jQuery is write less, do more JavaScript library. It helps you to simplify the client-side scripting on HTML. And it's cross-browser as well. So it works on Internet Explorer, Chrome, Mozilla. So we are going to use a library called jQuery to modify the HTML elements that we have on our page. So let's go ahead and add jQuery to our page. And the way we are going to do it is through a CDN. So what's a CDN? CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. So essentially someone else has hosted this jQuery file on their servers, and we'll be able to use it without downloading it to our project. So let's directly use a jQuery CDN. And the way I'm going to do it is, let's go to Google over here in Chrome, and I'm going to search for jQuery CDN. So let's add jQuery to our code. So I'll go to the first link over here, and let's add the latest version, which is jQuery 3.3.1, and we are going to add the minified version. So the minified version has all the tabs or the new lines characters which are eliminated, so it's smaller in size. So I'm going to copy this thing, the script that they have over here. It's essentially what they're saying is our script is located at this location. And another advantage of using CDN is not only that you don't have to download it, even other users who are using or coming to your website, it's most likely that they have this file already in the cache on their browser, because a lot of other websites are going to use it as well. So it's much faster to load if you're using a standard CDN rather than having your own JavaScript files. So I'm going to add this jQuery CDN over here right before the custom code that we wrote, the custom inline JavaScript that we wrote. I'm going to write and I'm going to paste the jQuery CDN over here. So I'm going to copy this and go back to my Sublime and add it over here and save it. We have added jQuery to our page. So we have added jQuery to our page, right? But we haven't used it yet. So we added the jQuery script over here. Let's now go ahead and use it. And to use it, what we are going to do is let's create a simple message div over here. So right below my body tag, I'm going to go over here and say div ID is equal to message and say /div, save it. So I created a placeholder div on my page, and let's write some message to this div. So what we're going to do is go back to our script, inline script place, and what I'm going to do is use jQuery to add a message over there. And the way you would use jQuery, if some of you might not have used it before, is going to use the $sign over here, so which is the shorthand for jQuery. So $sign means that we are using jQuery now, and we want to add a selector. So we're going to say £I message. So message is the ID for our div. Whenever we have a pound or a hash sign over here, we are saying that select a div from my body whose ID is message. Okay, so you read this as select a div from my body whose ID is message. Okay, whenever you read a pound sign, you should read it like that. The pound is for the ID selector. So we want jQuery selector on message. Once you select this element, we want to add the HTML over there, and we want to say hello Mihir. So now we have added some HTML to our div. So let's go ahead and test this out and see if this is working fine. I'm going to go back to here. Let's refresh this page. As you see, we were able to use jQuery and add some elements to our screen to our user. So right now we are doing some basic HTML and JavaScript, but I want to make sure that everyone who is at different levels of understanding also gets this. So please be with me on this if you are really good at JavaScript, and this might be a cakewalk for you. But still, I want to make sure that we cover basics and go to more advanced stuff later. All right, so seems like most of you are done and you have reached to this point. So what we were able to do is using our jQuery, we were able to manipulate HTML on our page and we added a content over there, right? So similarly, the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to use HighCharts to take the data from internet. We are going to use an API, that a sample API that they have provided, take that data from the internet and plot it to our chart. Just like we added a simple text over there, instead of that, we'll add a entire chart, or no, we'll create a chart for ourselves. Okay. So here's how we're gonna go about doing that. The first thing that I want to do is make sure that you have this link over here. And this is the API that we are gonna use to build our high chart. And this API is gonna give us the data that we want to plot. Select that and paste it in your browser. And you should see something like this. And once you have that, let me know. So what we are seeing over here is an array, wherein within each element over here, we have a timestamp and a value. So this is the Unix timestamp and the value. And it is a plot of USD versus EUR currency pair over the last few years or so. It might not be an accurate points, but it's a sample data that HighCharts has given us. So what we are trying to do is we are going to take this data and plot it. And to do that, the next thing that I want you to search on internet, on Google, is how are we going to use jQuery to fetch the data from an API? How are we going to use it? And the reason why I ask you to find it out is because we just don't want to tell you what to do and just show you every piece of syntax over there. So why don't you guys go ahead and search on Google, how do you use jQuery to fetch the data from an API? And let me know in the chat if you were able to find something. So how do you use jQuery to take the data from an API? Go ahead and look for it and let me know what do you find. Let me just go ahead and search it over here as well. So here's how I would search. I would say jQuery, because that's what we are using. Get data from API. So I see that no, you could use jQuery.get, which is the first option. And the second option is get JSON, right? I see a few answers saying you could use get. Most of you are right over there. jQuery has an option to have different forms of get as well. So you could have a get CSV, you could have get JSON, you could do get XML. Over here, the data that we have is in the JSON P or the JSON format. So we are going to use a method called get JSON that jQuery provides us to be able to get this data from the internet into our code or inside our JavaScript. Okay. So let's use the get JSON method. And again, there are different ways of doing it, different ways of getting to the same point. So let's go over here and let's use the get JSON method. So the way we are going to do it is we are going to say, we're going to use jQuery. So we're going to use the $, and then we are going to use get JSON. And the first parameter to this function is the URL where we want to get this JSON from. So we have this URL over here. Make sure you copy the entire thing with the question mark. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it over here. And once I have it over here, the second parameter that we want to give it to this is the callback function, which is going to get called once we have this data. And what do we mean by callback? So as I said, JavaScript is an asynchronous programming language. It is event driven. So it's not going to wait on this line until it gets the entire data from the internet. It is going to try to go to the next line, but we don't know where to go once we have completed this. So it's almost like calling your friend, and if he's not available at that point, you say that you can call me back on this number, right? So we are trying to tell our JavaScript that once you have got this data, call us back on this number. So we are giving a callback function now. And to give that function, we are going to say, once we have this data, we want to say plot chart, and we haven't defined this plot chart yet. So we don't know what this plot chart is yet. So let's go ahead and define this plot chart. So we are going to say we're going to create a function called plot chart. When this plot chart is called, the getJSON method is automatically going to call it using the data that we want. So we're going to say chart data over here. Okay. And let's do a console.log of the chart data. So let's make sure that we are getting this data before we try to do anything else, right? So we're going to save it. So what we did is we used the getJSON method to get the data from our API. And then we used the plot chart. So we gave it a callback called as plot chart, saying that once you get this data, call this function. And what is plot chart? We define the plot chart over here. And we said that whenever the getJSON is going to call this plot chart, it is going to call it with the data that it is fetching. And this is the name of that we created, right? We don't know. It could be anything like XYZ. So we called it chart data because we want to plot the chart out of it. So it could be any data or any variable name that you give. So I'm going to save this. Let's go back to our browser over here. Let's refresh this page. Let's go to the console because that's where we printed. And as you see over here, we got the array that we had. So we got the entire array that we were seeing before on the browser itself. Now we have that data inside our code, inside our JavaScript code. So reach to this point and let me know in the chat when you're done. Sanjay, I'm not sure if I get your question properly. Do you want to get the JSON data from the JSON file which is stored on your computer? You can't use a file system URL over here. So you can't say something like file / something like that. It needs to be a web URL. So what you would want to do is start a simple server on your computer. If you have Python installed on your computer, you could start a simple server using a utility which comes along with Python. So you could start a simple server on your file system and then just give it a local URL. So you could say something like 127.0.0.1/ and then you would give the file name. Does that make sense? All right. So once we are done with that, the next thing that we want to do is actually plot our HighChart, right? So we want to draw the HighCharts for us over there. So to do that, let's go to HighCharts documentation and see how are we gonna go about doing the HighCharts. So let's go back over here and I'm gonna search on Google. I'm gonna search for HighCharts. So it's a library that we are gonna use to plot our chart. Then once we are over here, let's click on the first link that you see. So let's look at the documentation and let's see how do you go about installing the HighCharts. So let's go back over here and click on the installation, right? And this is the first option that they give us is using, you could use this in your head tag. It doesn't really matter. You could also add it to the body tag. So what we're gonna do is take this script tag. We went to the docs over here. We went to highcharts.com. And then we went to the docs and then we went to general documentation. And then once we are over here, we said installation. Inside the installation, we see that you could include your HighCharts just like we included the jQuery library directly using the script tag. So you can take this and copy it in your, just below, just after you have pasted your jQuery, you would add your HighCharts over there as well and save it. And once you are done with that, the next thing that we want to do is we are going to use HighCharts to draw our chart. So to do that, we wanted to make sure that we went to the documentation and we saw how to install HighCharts on the page. It was as simple as adding the script tag on our page. So once you're done with that, let me know. All right. So seems like most of you are done adding HighCharts to your page. All right. So once you are over here, let's create a simple chart for us. So the way we are going to do it is, again, just like we had div ID is equal to message over here. Now, instead of message, we want to plot the chart. So I'm going to change the ID of this div to, instead of saying message over here, I'm going to say chart div. Okay. So I'm going to say chart div. I'm going to save it. And to draw an HighChart over here on this div, what we're going to do is inside our plot chart data, we already have this chart data over here. So for now, we don't want to worry about that. Let's plot our first HighChart. And to do that, we're going to say var my chart is, we're going to say HighCharts So why don't you guys tell me the line. So look through the HighCharts documentation and search for a line which allows you to draw a simple chart. So let me just give you a hint. So I want something like HighCharts dot something. What will you write over here? And then we want to say the chart div, right? And then we want to give the options of this chart. And we will shortly define what the options are going to be. We don't have that options defined yet, but I want you to tell me what are you going to use over here. So search for that and search on the documentation, look through some examples and find it. So Ritu says .js, Mahesh says HighCharts.charts. So again, right now we don't have any options defined, so definitely it's going to give an error. But yeah, you guys were correct that it's called the chart method. So let's just go ahead and change this. So we're going to say chart. This is how we are going to do a basic high chart. We're going to use the method called HighCharts.chart. Make sure that you get the capitalizations right on this one. And this sometimes I tend to forget that the C is not capital. It's not in camel case. So HighCharts is one word. And then you use chart in the smaller cases as well. So once you are over here, we haven't defined the options over here. So these options are going to tell the HighChart what kind of chart that you want to plot. So let's define our basic options. So I'm just going to do a very minimal options over here. I'm going to say var options is equal to, let's create a very basic or simple options variable. So we are going to say chart. So this chart option helps us to define what type of chart it is. Okay, so let's do a very basic column chart. So I'm going to say type. And where am I getting these things from? Well, I'm going to let you do search a few things as well, but we are getting this from the HighCharts documentation, which is on their page. And I'm going to shortly, once we do the first chart, I'm going to let you search for a few things as well. So don't worry about it. Let's do the first one. Let's do a very simple chart over here. So I'm going to say instead of, so this is chart, type is column. Okay. And then we're going to say series is an array. So we are going to give an array of what we want to plot. Okay. So to do that, we are going to add the first series over here. So we are going to say, so we are creating an array object, which has an array, which has an object inside us. Okay. So we created a series, which is an array. Then we are going to add an object inside it. And this object has name. We want to give the name of that series. So let's say my first plot. And then we're going to say data is, let's give some basic array. So let's just give 1, 2, 3, 4, save it. And let's see if we get it properly. Hopefully we haven't made any syntax. So make sure that you add comma after you have all your options. Make sure you have a comma over here. After you complete your curly brackets, make sure you add a comma after between these two things as well. Okay, save it. Let's go back over here. And if everything is correct, we should see our first chart. And as you see, we got the first chart over here. We created a very simple HighCharts on the page, and we added a dummy data over there for us. So why don't you guys go ahead and try it out and see if that works. All right, so for those who are done, I want you to figure out, look through the HighCharts documentation, or try to use a basic common sense that you could use over here. And how about if I want to, instead of changing this, instead of plotting a column chart over here, if I want to plot a line chart, how do you go about? I want to draw a line from 0 to 4, right? So I want to do a continuous plot. How do you go about doing that? Which line in this code would you change? And try that thing out as well. So try it out and tell me what do you see. We want to, instead of plotting these bars, we want to draw a continuous line over here. Yep, you would change this type to line over here, right? So let's just try that out. Save it, refresh this. And as we see, now we get a continuous line instead of those bars over there, right? You could add different options over here. You could change the colors, and you could look up all the documentation and see what options do you have on that. We don't have our x-axis defined. We don't know what no, we are plotting these values on the y-axis over here. So what if we want to have certain categories on the x-axis? So we want to say how many apples do the first person has, the second person has, and the third person has, right? So let's say something like we could go over here and say, so this is from their example. I'm just trying to show you how I would go about doing that. I'm going to say x axis, and I'm going to add some categories to it. So I could say, so maybe you could say the first person or second person. Let's give some names. Mihir, let's say Ravi, let's say Sanjay. Okay. And let's make sure we give the same numbers over here. So we have 3 categories, we give 3 plots, and let's see what happens. So make sure you add the commas properly. You don't miss out these commas, otherwise it's going to give you an error. So in this case, it makes more sense to have a column chart. So let's keep it column. And now as you see, now we have 3 categories over here, and we have added the values for 3 of these. So try this out as well. So I'm just trying a few things so that you get a sense of how easy it is to manipulate the options over here to be able to draw different kind of charts on our page. So guys, let me know once you have tried that out. So what we did was we wanted to add some categories on the x-axis, right? So instead of having a continuous line over there, we didn't have the x-axis defined. So what we did was we created categories on the x-axis, and then we said on the y-axis, you have the values of 1, 2, and 3. Okay. All right. So this was the fake dummy data that we were plotting, right? So instead of this fake dummy data, what we actually want to plot is the chart data, which is coming from our API, right? We already have it in our code over here. So we already have, when we do a console.log, we could add this chart data. So instead of saying 1, 2, 3, what we could do is now change this to chart data, right? So now this is going to take the data from our API and plot it on our web page. And instead of saying X categories, now we don't want this actually. So what we could do is remove this categories. We don't want anything over here. Okay, so let's just remove this x-axis for now. We'll add it again, but right now we don't need it. So make sure you remove the x-axis properly from there. You remove the commas over there as well. And once you are done with that, you could say type is equal to line, because it is a plot of 2 currency pairs in a continuous form. So it's a line chart. And then once you have that, let's go ahead and see if we are able to get this data on our page. And as you see, we were able to get this data from the API onto our chart. But there is something missing on the chart, and I want you guys to tell me what is it missing or what's wrong with it. So chart title is fine, right? I mean, you could always go and change the title. I'm not worried that much about the chart title. I know that you guys are smart enough to change that. But again, look at the main thing that you want trying to show to the users. Can you look at this chart and you can tell me just by looking at the chart, what is the chart in terms of what is the x-axis and what is the y-axis? And again, you can also do the legends. You can go there and say X label and Y label, and you can add the legends over there as well. But look at the values itself. Do they make sense on x-axis and y-axis? So look at the values and on the x-axis and y-axis. So Mahesh says zooming capability. Yes, that's something that you would want to do. You would want to do going ahead. So you would want to add a zooming capability on the x-axis so that you can zoom in. But even if you zoom in, what do you see on x-axis and y-axis? Does that make sense? What do you see on x-axis over there? 130G, 350G, 1400G. Do they make sense? On axis, you have something in G's. Does that make sense? No, right? And why is that so? So what is this plot? This plot was the plot of USD versus EUR, which is a currency pair. So think of it as a stock data. What should be the units of x-axis? Time, right? So on x-axis, we need to have time. And on y-axis, we have the values or the value of that currency pair on that time instance. So we haven't told our HighCharts that, right? So on x-axis, we have time information. So if you look at the values in our console over here, so the first item over here is a timestamp, right? And we haven't told our HighCharts that this is a timestamp. So how will we go about doing that? Can you look at the documentation and see how will you search for it, and how will you change, make the x-axis display the time information? All right, so for those who are not getting it, so let me try to search it for you and see how I would go about doing it. Okay. So sometimes if you think that no, you are not getting the right answer from the documentation itself, or it's getting confusing, your best friend is going to be Google search. So what we are going to do is search for HighCharts. Okay. And then we're going to say plot. Let's say we want to say plot time on x-axis, right? So we got the first Stack Overflow question and answer over here. Okay, so let's go and look at what do they say. You could make a 12-hour format. We don't necessarily need a 12-hour format, but over here we get a hint over here saying that, you know what, you could have a type as date time over here, right? And that's gonna make it of time date time. I'm not really sure if that's the best approach of doing that, but over here in the second answer over here, they have said that this ensures that x-axis is treated at date time values, right? And we already used x-axis on our code once, so we know that this is an option. So let's go ahead and take this. So let's take this option over here and add it to our code. So we're gonna take it and paste it over here. What I did was we went through and looked for the documentation. If it is confusing on the HighCharts documentation, your best friend is gonna be Google. Search on Google, and we found that you could have a type of date time on your x-axis, which someone said that it ensures that the x-axis is treated as date time. So we're gonna add this, and let's go back to our page and let's see if that works. So let's refresh this. And now as you see, this makes so much more sense. We have the years over here, 2008 through 2018, right? And we have the values on the y-axis, on the value of that currency pair on that day or that instant, right? So, all right, so seems like you guys were able to complete that. And so let me just know, as something that you would want to try out or know as a homework assignment, how would you go about zooming on the x-axis over here? How would you go about finding that option? And if you are able to complete that and send me the file that you worked on hello@codeheroku.com, I will be able to provide you some feedback as well. I'll be able to give you some comments on your code. So what if we want to zoom in on 2011 and we want to see what happens for the entire year, right? So how would you go about doing that? So try that out and send me the code at hello@codeheroku.com, and I'll be able to provide some feedback on the code that you have written. Okay. So that brings us to the end of this workshop. I hope you guys enjoyed working on data visualization with HighCharts, and you were able to learn something new today. I hope that I'll see you in our future sessions as well. It always helps to hear feedback from you and see what we are doing right and what we are doing wrong. So if you could go to our Facebook page and leave some reviews for us, that will help us a lot. That's the only thing actually which keeps us going. So please make sure you go to our Facebook page. I'm pasting the link over here, and give us some reviews so that it helps others as well to know about us. All right, thanks for your time, and I shall take your leave. I know it was we went over time, and thanks for staying till the end. I hope to see you guys in our future sessions.